Hey guys, what's up? I'm Albert Green, and this is a Music Talk podcast. Today we're joined by Andrew Marks. He is a music producer from New York. And yeah, tell us something about yourself, man.
What's up? Andrew Marks. Been in New York for like 5 years. Future house producer, and yeah.
So, what's your background, man? Tell us about how music really came into your life.
Ooh, background. I started doing music when I was like probably 6 or 7, like playing piano, and then that was it for the rest of my life, like playing piano, and that was kind of all I was really focused on. And then went to a rave back in like 2011, and it was all downhill after that.
Oh my. Honestly, piano is a very important thing when it comes to music production.
Oh, for
Because
sure.
that's all
Yeah,
you're
for
really
sure.
working off of is a MIDI keyboard or something like that, you know?
Yeah, yeah, it's absolutely crucial. I mean, I know there are producers out there that can do MIDI without knowing the actual theory behind any of it, but I don't know how they do it.
Neither do I. So what rave was it? Who was it?
Oh, it was like a small festival in Texas that like I think it was Avicii opening, no Zed of opening for Avicii opening for
Oh
Tiesto like
man,
back to back to
that
back. And it
that's
was
an
only like two
insane
thousand.
one.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, what? Imagine a time when like Zed was like opening before all. You know what I mean?
That's
Like,
nuts. Did he have
but it
clarity
was
out
only
by
like
then?
two. I think the album had like just dropped, so it might have been 2012. I think the album had like literally just dropped, so like all those songs are brand new. It was wild. It was like only like 2,000 people in a tent. It was crazy.
Wow. I
So
mean that's
man,
a
miss those days.
that's a very awesome lineup. First of all, I mean, was that your first rave?
I think it might have been actually. Yeah,
Wow,
yeah. There were a few like in quick succession, like right around that time, but because that was like right when I first started producing for real. So,
that's
but yeah,
awesome.
no,
I mean,
it was dope.
that's a sick lineup. Avicii, Tiesto. Is that so? When I was in Florida once, we actually I was like I think I was 13 or 12, and the Fountain where Liv is, and
Mm.
Tiesto was performing that night, and we actually got to go into the club because my little cousin was knocking on the doors. So this is hours before they opened, but I'm pretty
Oh
sure I
yeah,
saw Tiesto setting up there or whatnot. But yeah.
nice.
So, what current artists are you following now?
Current artists. Ooh, so there's a few like both for dance music and then also non-dance music. So the non-dance music ones are like, or at least there's just one great vocalist out of the UK whose name is Tom Gregory. Love his sound, his vibe, everything, the grooviness of it. Yeah, but then like in terms of like future house music, there's a kid named Connor Ross who's releasing a ton on future house music, and then I got another guy named Mo Falk who I remember he's like blowing up right now. But I remember he and I were like DMing like 2 years ago,
That's
like back
awesome.
about being at like ADE, just being like talking, making big plans, big dreams. And the next thing you know, he's like massive and huge. So props to him, man.
So, who's your biggest influences? I mean, these artists are. Listen, you got a cool background in music. I'm just gonna jump into this. Your song Amsterdam, big fan of it. It's
Oh,
pretty
thanks,
awesome,
man.
man. But who influenced you to make that? Yeah,
So there were a couple different artists, but I think one of the biggest influences for me, if you're just talking about like current people in a similar
current and
genre, it's
older. I
like
mean, it's all good.
yeah. So older, like was Alesso, like old school Alesso was my biggest inspiration for a long time. But current inspiration is always I always take cues from Lucas and Steve.
Yeah,
they're
they're
such a
dope.
really quality sound, and they ended up putting Amsterdam in the radio show the week it came out, which was like a big
Wow.
boost of confidence. So
hundred
always good when
percent
stuff like
boost of
that happens.
confidence. I actually like
Yeah.
as an artist myself, I love to see like when people even if they're smaller, I love to see them reposting it and just reacting to it. It just gives you that feeling of like I did it and I made it for a reason.
Yeah, I
Obviously,
mean, what else is all of this about if like not to connect with people?
like
Especially
I was saying on my other podcast, like it's definitely not about the money because we're not making our money from the music itself. We're making the money from the shows. You
nah,
know.
nah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's all about being united with people, and makes it tough in a time like this with everything going on. But at least there's still music and people are still connecting with that. So
Yeah, 100%. So, what's the song about? Like, I mean, obviously, some songs, I'll be honest, they have no reason for it. You're just writing words. But is there anything specific about this one?
Amsterdam is just like my favorite city in the world. If I can move there, I would, like in a heartbeat. I love New York, but I know that I want to live in Amsterdam one day. So it's kind of a love song to, my favorite city. And the guys that collaborated with me, named 2DB on that record, they feel very similarly about that record. And we were all there at ADE last year in the fall, and then got pretty inspired about that. And so that's where the song came from.
That's awesome, man. So what experience did you have there?
Ooh, man, there's just nothing like it. I've gone to Miami Music Week for like 7 years in a row, but it just doesn't compare to the energy of being at 80. And that was my first time there for that. And
Oh wow.
it's just crazy how many people are walking around. The entire city is just loaded with
Dance
people in the
music?
industry. You're seeing all your friends. Yeah, it's just dance music everywhere. It's like you're walking around and you run into all your friends. It's like there's nothing like it. So
So, what would you consider that song in genre wise? Sorry, or do you not consider yourself or that song a specific genre?
So everything I do is under the umbrella of like future house. That record I would call future bounce, but everything I do is under the umbrella of future house, and that 122 to 128 is my bread and butter, like that
Yeah.
BPM. I don't really stray outside of that. But yeah, I mean, some of the stuff ends up being a little slower and deeper. Like I just did a remix for another artist, and it's not the same energy as Amsterdam. It's a little bit more down tempo, but it's down to like 122, I think.
Yeah.
But it's still got energy. It's still gets me moving. So
So, could you briefly describe that process of making that song?
yeah, so I got sent the vocal file last week sometime, and then had a few days to like think about it. I think I ended up writing like 6 chord progressions. Like I couldn't land on one that I loved.
No, I
They were all
totally get that,
fine,
man.
but and I ended up actually hitting it last night. Like I think the 6th or 7th one, and it just I knew it was it, and I finished producing it in a matter of like 3 hours and sent it off this morning. So
Dope, man.
when it's
So,
right, usually it's gonna happen pretty quickly.
100%. So, what would you define as a finished song? If you understand what I'm saying, does that make sense?
What do you
So,
elaborate?
So, what would you define like you get to the end point and you mix and you master it, and what just goes through your mind as to this is awesome, I'm gonna release it or I'm gonna send it out to a label. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't know. It's this weird subconscious feeling of like I call it good enough. Like it's good enough status. If it hits everything you're wanting it to do, if you're getting really nitpicky to the point where like no one's gonna notice, not even other producers. Like at a certain point, you just got to call it and move
Yeah.
on because you got other records to make, you got other moves to make, and when you can be satisfied that it's good enough, like that's usually it for me.
I totally get that. I mean, during my process of making music, it's like you get to a point where it's like you can't really do anything better, but yeah. So what would you say is the best time for you to make your music? I mean, obviously at night I mean, personally for myself, at night I'm more open and more fluent in making my music, but how is that for you?
It depends. Like I think in terms of mixing, I have to mix in the morning when ears are fresh, when they've had a chance to rest, your body is kind of cleanse itself, reset itself after sleeping. Then
Especially like after you've been listening to the music
oh yeah, for sure,
for hours
for sure.
straight. Because when I get out of the studio, I definitely am not hearing properly. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
And it's not that the music's too loud. It's just you're hearing so many different types of levels and EQs
Yeah.
and like
You're constantly hearing untreated music that you yourself are trying to fix, and that takes
Yeah.
a toll after a while, for sure. But yeah, no, I think mixing in the morning, and then I try to write new ideas at night so I can sleep on them. But usually, just overall, I'm better producer in the morning, I think.
So you say you mix and master your own music, right?
Most of it, yeah, usually, and then
So how's that process for you?
uh,
Does it take you time? Like,
some records are just easy. You just hear it and you're like, this is wrong, and it's always true what they say that the more simple the record, the better. It's just so much easier.
yeah.
Some people.
I mean, maybe easier, and it may sound as perfect as you'd want it to be, but sometimes, like when you put your time and effort to it, you just get to a point where you're at a standpoint, and you're like, I can't do anything more. You know?
Yeah. I've definitely had records like that where, again, it hits good enough status, like we talked about, and I know that my skill level where it is today is not going to be the same as a mastering engineer from Spinning Records who's been doing it for 40 years. Like I know that. So, but that's part of the fun of it all, is continuing to push yourself to be that good, to try to be that good of a producer, So
Yeah, I mean, so being that you got all this, you got Amsterdam out. That's your, I think, your latest release, right?
yep.
So what's your direction for your music? Like, where do you want it to get to? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think that for me, a lot of what's happening right now is like, radio show support and like, some people playing it out at shows. But I think for me, one of the biggest things is I want to move past the point of like Spotify playlist promotion, worrying about like who's putting it in those playlists and like only caring about like, are the biggest names in the world willing to play my records? That's really all I really want to focus on at this point, is making stuff that is, the production is just there, that it hits that hard and has it speaks that much to a dance floor. Whenever we can get back on dance floors, I think that's like what I'm moving everything towards. So
That's awesome, man. So, I mean, I want to learn more about you. So tell us something about, like, tell us some fun facts about yourself, I guess.
fun
A little
facts.
random, but like, figured I'd throw it in there.
Okay. Fun facts. I used to have a job that was the opposite of this. Whatever is the most opposite.
What would be the opposite of making music?
Not well, just in terms of like, people always tell me that when I tell them what I used to, they like don't believe it. I used to be a tax accountant at one point. Like
Really?
yeah. People like don't.
Okay,
don't
I could see why people don't
believe me
believe
at
that.
all. Like, do not believe me. But yeah, I did that for a long time. That's actually what I went to school for. And then when I was finishing up grad school to get my master's, I like sitting for the CPA exam and met a kid who got me into music production, and then we formed a duo for a little bit at the beginning of all these things like years ago, and I learned a lot from him. But it was pretty funny. Like, I went from working at a big corporation to making dance music.
You know, a friend of mine, well, an old friend of mine, Blau, you know him?
Yeah.
So he has a very, very similar story. If you don't know it already, he was actually, I think it was going into real. No, he was going onto the, like the stock market type of business. I don't know what to refer to that as.
Yeah.
But he was very, very into it. His family has been doing it for years, I'm pretty sure, and he was graduating college, and he spoke to his professor, and he's like, I've been making music, and then showing him some music, and then he got support of his professor. So his professor actually called his parents and told them, your son's got a talent, and he wants them to just acknowledge that and let him follow his passion. So I feel like that's a cool thing to know.
Yeah, for sure. And I respect, like, I remember one of the things that, like, around the same time, he was putting out so much more music, like, than I ever could imagine myself doing. And I think that's one of the things that held me back the most years ago, was not being willing to just put stuff out there and let people respond to it, whether it was the best production or not. I think that's if I had a regret in any of all this, which I really don't, but it would be that I wish I had just put myself out there more at the beginning of all these things.
So how do you respond to, like, people not really reacting to your music, because it could definitely be like very not heartbreaking, but it could take a toll on you, know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think you just realize that, like, we live in a day and age where everybody's got a million things they're focused on and can be distracted by or entertained by, and there's more music now than there ever has been. And just knowing that, like, your music is not going to fit everyone's taste, and that might even mean, like, labels in the industry, that might even mean fans in the industry, but there's such a big workforce here, and like just fan base of all dance music. Like, you're gonna find people you're gonna find people that like it. So even if your best friend doesn't, like, just keep putting yourself out there.
Yeah. But so
Okay.
How do you navigate yourself through the music industry? I mean, it's definitely a difficult industry to get into, first off. Yeah.
I think for me it was like finding friends in the industry, whether that be other artists or whether that be people on the A&R side or whatever. Just finding people that you can connect with on an actual, like, friend level, because it makes the relationships that much more valuable. You cherish them that much more. So that was part of the reason I moved to New York, is that because Texas where I grew up, doesn't really have the same level of industry scene in EDM. There are shows there, and more now than there used to be, but it didn't have the same, like, just foundational support that you want from, like, being able to get in the studio with people face to face, especially for people who make future house, future bounce, that tends to skew a little more European in sound. Like, there's not as many people in Texas. Texas is a big, like, bass head, like, like drum and bass place and
Yeah.
dubstep place. It's not big on the house music really. So
So how do you differentiate like a real friend from a just like a someone who likes you for your music, you know? Because I'll be honest, like there are people when they see success, they run after that and they want to be your so said friend. So how do you figure that out?
it's tough. I think it's just relationship to relationship, but I look back at some people, like there are people I became friends with around the same time where, these some of these guys I now text memes to every day. Like we literally talk about nothing, or we joke about like nonsense, or sharing what we're doing in quarantine. Like there's people that like I actually am friends with or invite me to their Thanksgiving dinner. But then there's people in the industry that I know who only want to talk to me at a party, or like want to come, shake my hand to a certain place or venue. And it just becomes very clear. And, that doesn't make the friendships like not important on that side. It just means that like, you just know where you can put your trust in the people the most.
Yeah. So um how's your career developed over the past couple of years or few years?
I think for me, the biggest thing was building a network. I think I tried to do it alone for a long time. I self-released a lot back in like 2017 and 18, and that was fine. I had a really good Spotify promotion strategy. I built this whole database of Spotify playlisters that like would help me. Not that I wasn't paying, just like people I would hit up on Facebook and like DM them on Facebook and would say, hey, like if you wouldn't mind putting my song on your playlist, like if you like it, go for it. And that ended up working. And I was getting like 6 digits on every song I was putting out back then, which
Oh,
is great.
nice.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
all self-releasing. It's always fun doing it that way. But I realized that there's only so far you can go by yourself in an industry that is entirely collaborative. The whole premise of this industry is people playing each other's music and at their shows, right? Like, that's the beauty of it, is it's so collaborative. And I knew that I needed to work on that and get more people involved like in my life and my journey on this stuff. And that's something that I've been focusing on a lot, and it paid off a lot for sure.
So tell us more about that strategy. Because listen, it can be very difficult to get your music out there and especially get the views that you anticipate you were going to get. So, I mean, let us know, give us a little tip
Wait, about which part?
about the Spotify playlists.
Oh, no, I just yeah, I mean there are companies that will like link you up with playlist curators and try to like
100%, but there are also like, there are smaller artists out there that don't really, I mean,
yeah,
listen,
no, I get it. No
everyone's
one wants to
willing to
pay money
pay.
to do. I get it.
Exactly.
There's a lot of barriers to enter in all of this. I get it. I just found, I would go on Spotify and I would find playlists that had the right kind of, vibe, that had the right amount of followers or just some followers, and I would see who created the playlist and I would go find them on Facebook and I would just message them. It
So
wasn't anything
you'd practically
complicated.
you'd practically be a creep for
Basically, yeah, but it
oh
worked.
my. Listen, as long as it worked for you, that's it.
No, and the thing is people were generally pretty receptive. Like I would just, I said like, hey, I like your playlist. Like I'm gonna follow it. If you want to put my music in it, go for it. And it worked. So
Why not? I mean, it's free first of all, and
yeah,
it works. So why not?
yeah.
So what labels have you signed with, or single track labels have you signed with?
So Game Room Records has been the two most recent ones. And then I've had some remixes signed to like smaller labels. But yeah, Game Room for sure is the two most recent ones that did well. And then the records that are coming out next have been given like soft offers by a couple labels that I'm pretty excited about, but I can't talk about yet. So
Oh, okay.
like, so
Um,
yeah, so we'll see.
no. We're not going to get into that. Maybe another time when they're released, we can come on
Yeah,
here and do
yeah.
another one. But who have you remixed for or made songs with that you could say are a total success? These are the big guys and they're the big fish of the industry,
Ooh,
or at least come into contact with or had support by.
support by, I've seen like some of my stuff get support from like, at least in terms of like Spotify support from like Brooks, Sick Individuals, Cashmere, Cascade, like, people that I look up
Listen,
to.
that's dope, man. That's really
Yeah,
cool.
it's fun. But I would much rather see Brooks drop a record of mine, so we'll work on that. But
Listen,
but
one day.
yeah, that's what we're working towards. But it's important to like know where you're at and respect like the level you're at. And I've had a lot of success so far, and I also have done a lot of remixes for, pop music too, and that's led
Oh,
to a lot of
nice.
opportunities. Yeah, so like got nominated this year to be for Remixer of the Year at the Remix Awards at Miami Music Week, which was really cool, and I got nominated for the Remix of the Year, which was super dope. So it's
Hello,
pretty,
dude.
yeah, I was pretty
That's pretty
happy about
big.
that. Yeah.
Why don't you talk more about that? Let's hear it.
Yeah, so that's it's part of the Remix Top 30 Countdown, which is syndicated on iHeartRadio, and so every week they play out like the remixes of the top, I think, 30 pop songs. And I did a remix for Jonas Brothers "Sucker" that ended up getting nominated for
That's a great
like
song.
remix of the year, and that was against like, I think Axel's
Zach
remix
Martino.
of. Yeah, well,
Was
he's
that
he's
against?
always there. Yeah, but it was
I only know that
nominated
because he's
against.
a friend of mine.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I don't know if I've ever met him, but I end up on FaceTime calls with him. Like I'll be with other people, and then like they'll be like, "Oh, you know Andrew, right?" And they'll like turn it to me, and he and I just like wave at each other. But like I don't think we've ever met. But like I produce like out on Staten Island with some of my other friends, and
Yeah,
he
he
lives
lives in
like,
Staten Island, so
yeah, literally lives down the street, and we're all so I like know him, but I don't. We've never actually like met. I don't think.
listen, he's a pretty cool guy, especially the music he makes. Like, I don't think he has a specific genre because like you hear it in his music. Have you heard his song Mood?
Yeah, yeah, I love that record. Yeah.
So like when you go back to his like 2015 records, you'll hear like some big room, like real big room music, and then you come back to Mood and it's like, put me in the mood. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, man, he's cool. Who else have you come into contact with?
Ooh, I don't know. I'm trying to rack my brain. Remembering life pre-coronavirus. I don't know. Um, most of the time I run into people. Well, I don't know. The last people I saw that
Listen, it
were
could be
famous
smaller
was
guys.
no, yeah, yeah, yeah. I know. I'm just trying to think. Rack my brain. I closed out for Bro Hug at the end of last fall when
Oh,
clubs were
nice.
still a thing.
Yeah,
So
when they were still a thing.
when they were still a thing, yeah. But yeah, it's been. I have a lot of friends here in New York that are actually like decently well-known artists. Like there's a guy named Castro who's like signed on Spinning and
Yeah,
Modern
he's
Machines.
actually
Like
going to be
a
on the
yeah.
podcast soon.
Oh, nice. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He and I have gotten to know each other through like my friends Brandon and Danny of 2DB like a lot the last like year, and we.
He's a pretty dope artist. He has some decent remix. I don't, well, not decent meaning the music. I'm talking about like the size of the artist.
Yeah, yeah,
Like he's remixed for Blau, Zach Martino,
for
Two
sure. Yeah.
Friends.
Yeah,
I
he's
just
a
love
really
this
good
one
dude.
guy.
He's really a really knowledgeable producer also. Like I just learned another trick from him like last week about doing something with my subs that I love now.
You know, it's I find very funny. Like while making music with other people,
What's that?
like sometimes you'll get to a point where they'll say something and you'll be like, "Wait, what are you talking about?" You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, for sure,
I,
for sure.
I mean, I don't know if I feel a little embarrassed when I say that, but like, come on, I wanted to look, sound good, you know?
Yeah, no, I mean that's the thing.
Have
Like,
you
why
ever
do you
come to a
think?
point like that?
I've been in sessions before where I've been like, wait, you like hold up, I need you to do that again, or like someone's like looked at me and been like, wait, how did you know to do? Or like, well, I've never heard of that. So it goes both ways for sure. But that's the beauty of it is we're always learning, and there's always more you can learn. Like, never be above like. Never be too cool to like watch a YouTube tutorial. Like, there's
Yeah.
always more to learn.
So, when making music, like, what are three things or two things that you always involve in your music? Yeah.
Ooh, I have this one fill that I always use.
Oh, of
Well,
course.
there's two fills I always use. One is like a kick and a snare that's really great, and then another one is this like Zed style like tom thing that sounds like one of like the ones from The Middle a couple years ago. That I
Yeah.
just love using the background of everything. And then obviously I have like standard kicks that I always use, or like a few subs that I always alternate between. But I also pretty much always have a piano. Always like I don't usually make music without a piano in my records. Since I did play music since I was like 7. So
Yeah. I mean, that original sound always sounds good. So, shit, I forgot the question again. I'll come back to it. I got this.
no, you're doing good.
Yeah, I'm trying to hold conversation, man. Uh, shit. Why do I always do this? Three things. Okay, I see that. Fuck. You know what? I'm gonna do something else.
Okay, okay.
Oh, here. I actually have the question. It's a good question. So, if you had to make a song with anyone, and I mean anyone, who would it be?
Oh man, I think it'd be Alesso. Honestly,
Really?
I've
Why?
always wanted to work with him. That was like a dream for years. So hopefully one day we'll see.
So who do you think is the most intricate when it comes to making music in the industry?
Wait, the most what?
Like the most like he. Okay, I'm gonna rephrase that question.
Okay.
Um, who do
Like
you
what
think puts
producer
in
do
the
I think is the
most
most detailed
time?
or the most time? Okay.
Like, I'm only asking this because I'm thinking about Dead Mouse right now, and
Hmm.
like this guy is not like he's not using common technology. He's using these soundboards and all this crazy shit. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I know that Dyro used to be like an insane producer. Like would spend like hundreds of hours on a record.
That's
Um,
nuts.
yeah, I remember seeing him used to post things of like his timestamp of his production of like how long he'd work on a project, and I will never do that because I don't want to know how long. I don't want to know how long I spent on this remix I did this weekend. It was probably like 50 hours, and I
Oh
would love to
my.
have some of that time. Well, that's what happens when you write 5 chord progressions before you hit the right
Yeah,
one.
I mean, listen, but at the same time, it's also good because then you get it perfect.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely know it was the best out of all of them. That's for sure. But yeah, no, I think. But again, like also, like we were just talking about, Castro is an insane producer. Also,
Yeah, he has, like I said, he has some cool tracks.
yeah.
But how many hours do you put into your music, or do you think?
Ooh, on average, like it probably like 40 hours if it's the record's right. That's like everything. I usually don't hit it faster than that because I like to take my time. But
Yeah.
in terms of writing something, if I write something, I usually can write it in like an hour and a half. If my writing session goes longer than an hour and a half, it's not going to be good.
So, what are some tips for like new producers and new artists to really get to collab? You know, because it's not easy reaching out to these bigger guys. I mean, as easy as it may sound, because of technology nowadays, you have Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. But you know, you're not always going to get the proper response that you hope for. You know, so
Yeah, yeah.
how do you think you'd reach out to someone that you want to collab with?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's something we can always all be better about doing. Like I've gotten to a point where I'm pretty complacent, like either making the records for myself or like waiting for someone to hit me up. And that's not always the best place to be. I should be pushing myself more, even probably. But I think in terms of like just people starting out, it's like make sure you learn a lot first, at least the basics, and then don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Like the worst that could happen in all of this is someone says no. And that we're all going to get told no at a point with all of this. So might as well just start going for it now.
So, what do you love about doing this? I mean, like I said earlier, you're not making your money off of music. So, I mean, all of us
Yeah.
aren't making our money off the music. So,
Yeah. No, I think it's just the endless creativity, right? You open up whatever DAW you're using and it's a world of endless possibilities. Like you could do anything, you could try anything, you can make any sound, and that's always been exciting to me is that like there's just it could go so many ways just from opening up your computer, and that music can go so far. It can get played across the ocean, it can get played at a festival, it can like make people move. And that's the thing for me is, why I fell in love with this music is because the whole point of it is to combine physical movement with like an emotional experience, and not all music is meant to be consumed or felt that way, right? Like dance music is special that it's meant to be felt physically, and
yeah.
that's a really like cool thing. And to make sound that makes people move and feel emotions, like that's priceless.
So, what DAW are you using?
I'm in Ableton. I have
Ooh,
been for a long time. I toy back and forth with getting Logic. I have a free trial with the new
yes.
computer I just got, and I'm toying with it. And
I
some
love
of my other
Logic. That's what
some
I've
of
been
my
using
other
for
friends
years.
are getting mad at me for having to stem out our projects and send them back to me.
Listen, I mean,
But
most
I
of the
mean,
people are using Ableton and Logic, so it's not really like the most difficult thing because
yeah,
listen, you don't gotta go. You're going back and forth between two software, so it's not really that big of a problem.
yeah, no,
Um,
agreed.
here's a very very big question I feel like we have in the EDM world. Are you a fan of samples?
I don't mind them.
Do you feel as
I
if it's like you're not making your own music when you use a sample? And I'm talking like hi hats, kicks, all that type of stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, like, I definitely don't make my own drums, that's for sure. So I have no problem admitting that. But But I mean,
I'm
yeah,
sure you tweak them your own to your own way.
yeah. No, I mean, I for sure I EQ non-stop. I compress. I have some tricks that I do on drums and stuff that makes it beefs it up or thins it out in the right places. But I mean, I definitely try to avoid using samples for main lead sounds. I definitely don't go for that. But sometimes it works. Sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. And I know I've used a sample in one of my records as the main lead synth on the bass line, and it's the most prominent sound in the drop. And I then heard somebody use the exact same synth on Modern Machines when it was
Oh.
After Hours record. On
Yeah.
Tiesto's like Deep House label, I heard somebody else use the exact same sound, and that's on Spinning Records. So what are you gonna do?
Yeah. Alrighty, man. So before we end off, I just want you to give us like 3 tips. Give the people 3 tips to navigate themselves and to help themselves with their production.
Never stop learning, make friends, and don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Those are like 3 generic ones, but if you wanted like production tips specifically, I could try to do that too.
Give us one.
One, um, be careful that about different sidechain plugins have different latency effects, and that can throw off your entire mix. So just like be careful. Like Nicky Romero Kickstart has some weird stuff that happens in Ableton depending on where you place it.
Yeah.
So just be careful, for any newer producers out there, whatever sidechain plugin you use, make sure you do some research on potential like negative effects, downsides of each one. So
Awesome, man. So yeah, this is Music Talk Podcast with Andrew Marks, and hope you guys enjoyed. Anything else you want to say?
no, just thanks, man. Had a good time.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Yeah. Bye.
Okay, cool.